Hi, I'm Hamish Black, and welcome to Writing on Games. For years, the shooter has dominated the video game landscape, and as a result, most people's playtime. However, thanks to the commercial superiority of one or two titanic franchises, combined with the business realities of AAA game development, you've seen the genre entirely defined by the influence of those few games. So, you see a cavalcade of what amounts to dudes with guns shooting at dudes with guns, crafting the most bare-bones you versus them narrative, framing multiplayer competition as inherently destructive, and the intimate viscera of violence as a number on a leaderboard, the badge to be worn proudly by the conquering badass. This medium can create entire universes out of nothing, and yet, even when we venture into the far-flung reaches of space, so often we find ourselves as dudes with guns shooting at dudes with guns. This isn't a problem of shooters being overly violent per se, it's not even about making them more kid-friendly or gaining some superficial level of sophistication, it's that our vision of what this genre can do, what its mechanics can say, has become so singular, providing one type of experience, telling one type of story, appealing to a select group of players while potentially alienating so many others. In short, one would be forgiven for glancing at modern shooters as a whole and seeing a bunch of pretty middling games. Strip all of that away, however, and there is still clearly something to be said for the pure mechanic of firing a projectile in a game. The immediacy of overcoming a challenge or winning a competition by pointing at something and hitting a button before your opponent has the chance to do the same. Otherwise, the genre wouldn't be the commanding force it is today. The problem is not shooter mechanics themselves, it's how narrowly we continue to frame them. What if, though, a game could provide you with that mechanical satisfaction without needing to mire the experience in the violent revelry or brotastic bravado we've come to associate with the shooter genre? Enter Splatoon 2, a game that on a foundational level functions like any other shooter, but through slight tweaks to its mechanics and rules could not feel more different from one, curating an environment that evokes creative expression over violent competition, and allowing a wider audience to experience the fun of a genre they might otherwise have been turned off by. See, Splatoon 2 still has you moving around a map, shooting guns and potentially eliminating opponents. It's just that given Nintendo's penchant for finding the beauty in the simple, their mission statement can be summed up like this. Swap out the bullets for ink, shift the target from other people to the map itself. Honestly, that is pretty much the core of Splatoon. And Nintendo are able to draw so much from this seemingly simple shift in ideals. For example, in other shooters, bullets function as bullets. They either hit the target and kill them, or they miss. Here, even if you miss an opponent, that shot is far from wasted. The ink you project serves multiple purposes. Swimming through your own team's ink allows you to move faster, as well as refill your ammo. You're not just thinking of bullets as a means of carving through your opposition. You're thinking of pathways you can create to most efficiently navigate the arena, placing an emphasis on a kind of improvised strategy, if that's not a total oxymoron. What is truly important, however, is the shifting of the target from other players to the map itself. In most of the game's modes, the goal is merely to cover as much of the arena in your team's ink as possible. Other shooters force you to take out opponents as the central goal. Here, any time you spend being forced to defend yourself against other players is time you're decidedly not spending helping your team win the game. This leads to a situation where you're constantly juggling between pushing further into an enemy's spawn, risking contact that would forcefully interrupt your objective, or finding less populated areas at the edges of the map where inking might not offer the strategic benefits associated with faster movement, for example. It all makes a change from running around until you find someone and hoping you see them before they see you, It's a hectic, messy, downright joyous experience that, bolstered by the tangibility of optional motion controls, subverts the typical shooter's need for absolute precision, making the game more accessible for those with reflex issues and the like. And this emphasis on chaotic fun is a sentiment perfectly reflected by the game's mischievous, cartoonish aesthetic. It makes for an energising change from the grey-brown mundanity signifying a more serious, gritty feel in other games. Hell, Splatoon even goes as far as to bring the idea of lobbies into its vision of a different kind of shooter. I'm willing to bet that when you think of shooter lobbies, you picture a bunch of morons making the most of their anonymity by spewing the dumbest stuff they can into their microphones, creating a pretty hostile environment at times. Splatoon 2's lobby, on the other hand, is a place you want to stick around in. It's vibrant, it has activities to keep you occupied. There are customizable player avatars displaying their daft little drawings, and what's more, you can encourage them through a rating system focused on positivity. Combined with Nintendo's stricter approach to moderation, you're encouraged to mingle, to share with those you'll soon be in competition with in a comparatively safe environment. It may not seem like a drastic or even noteworthy shift in most players' eyes, but given that so much of the modern shooter landscape is defined by a need to destroy, to pit player against player in violent, toxic competition, it is so refreshing to have a game that frames your interactions on every level as a means of communal, unrestrained creativity, even if what you're creating is a mess. And again, not a lot has actually changed in the moment-to-moment player inputs the game requires of you. You still get the physicality of firing the gun, the impact of shot hitting target. It's just that thanks to a slight shift in the purpose that shot serves and the identity of that target, Splatoon 2 ends up feeling new, revitalizing. All of a sudden, you've just opened up this genre to so many people who perhaps might not be into the brutality of painting the walls with someone's brains compared to, just painting the walls. What's perhaps most refreshing about Splatoon, however, is that it's not some indie experiment shouting from the sidelines that we could be approaching the mechanics of competition differently. This is Nintendo, one of the biggest companies currently making games, actively demonstrating that there is an audience clamouring for that fresh take on old staples, and that by making small tweaks to perceived genre standards, we can provide a wealth of varied, compelling experiences. So I hope you enjoyed my piece on Splatoon 2. If you did, why not hit subscribe, click the little bell thingy, and check out the podcast in the description. If you feel like going the extra mile, however, you can support the show via Patreon, like these wonderful folks currently on screen. You are all directly responsible for keeping this show going, and I cannot thank you enough. In particular, I'd like to thank Mark B. Writing, Spike Jones, Vasily Hrabinka, Julian McRoth, Zach Casserly, Leonardo Pele, Samuel Pickens, Tom Nash, Shardfire, Philip Lange, Rob, Rusty Shackelford, John Parks, Danny James, Mosh, Anna Pimentel, Gang Leader, Jesse Ryan, Brandon Robinson, Diego Fox Obuza, Justin's Holderness, James Doring, Biggie Smith, Peter, Artyom Vitsyuk, Christian Kuhneman, Nico Blakely, Camel Traffic, Nicholas Ross, and Charlie Yang. And with that, I'm Hamish Black, and this has been Writing on Games. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.